Well, hello and welcome to this lesson on the mobile CRM interface. And we're going to be looking at customizing the screens for the Sage CRM mobile interface. This is part of a new short series of lessons that we hope to cover just about all there is about customizing and working with the mobile interface. We can think of it as very much like um, a development environment, very similar to the um, very similar, in fact, to working with something like self-service or ASP pages or whatever. But this time, we're going to be experiencing something that is really quite codeless. We're not actually going to be coding. It is a way of simply configuring the system and understanding the fundamental differences between things like the context management, the way in which the interface is bolted together, and the way in which metadata is interpreted for the mobile interface. We'll see this develop over the course of these 5 lessons. Today is very much an introduction to that. And so what we're looking at is seeing how the interface for mobile devices can be tailored to display the most relevant fields. We'll be looking at what a system administrator can do to actually make sure that what data a particular user sees is allowed by that user, and thinking about the control of the menus and structures and the way in which fields are returned as well in the design of screens. Now, for the purposes of this, we are understanding that there's been in 2024, Sage CRM 2024 R2, a rebranding and uplift of the mobile optimized theme. Now, we did a few bug fixes within the release, but the major work was actually making sure that the interface matched the branding experience for Sage CRM in the main, as close as possible to match the branding instructions. And we've got the option when we're working with Sage CRM to decide if we've got a tablet, for example, are we going to work with the desktop environment or are we going to work with the mobile environment? And we're going to be concentrating here on the mobile experience that is looking at this main mobile theme. Now, in terms of development and testing, Sage CRM or Sage development team uses Browser Stack to actually test the mobile interface for Sage CRM. And that allows us to make sure that we've got the correct ability to work with the different browsers and devices that are on the market. We can actually use real devices. It actually allows us to work with simulating different network speeds and scenarios so that we can get the full sense of the experience, including indications of how well we're meeting different accessibility standards as well. So that's the background of us using the browser stack within the development of the 2024 R2. And you can see here in this particular slide that there is a refreshed design, that we've refreshed some of the icons that we're using, and we've made sure that in terms of the font that we're using, we're matching the readability and accessibility standards that the brand is aimed at delivering. We've tried to enhance navigation and streamline the user experience by providing easier access to information and features. I'm going to be talking about how we, in our localization and configuration for a particular customer, we can make other changes that we want in delivering the interface that a customer might want in terms of optimization of the mobile experience. And what we can also say is that or what I can also say is I've been testing this as well through my own devices as I've been preparing for these lessons. Um, I've actually been using a particular browser on my desktop for some of the screen grabs, but most of the work I've actually been doing, I'm able to use my phone to run through and actually test that the screens that I'm doing are running correctly. So I've simply used I've simply been using the screens here rather than my tablet or my phone to be able to capture a larger screen for us to be able to talk through. It makes it clearer for the presentation here. So although you're seeing something that is running inside a browser environment on a desktop, it is in fact the full working mobile experience that I have been developing and testing with throughout the preparations for today. Now, we're going to see and understand that devices are mapped to the mobile theme rather than the desktop theme by interpreting the user agent string, which contains the version of the browser and the operating system of the device. That's usually the automatic trigger to indicate that you're using the device, but we can set the device to say that Sage CRM should use a particular user interface theme. Automatically, smartphones and tablets are typically mapped to the Sage CRM mobile theme. But let's have a look at see where this is done. You can see that I've come in to Sage CRM's main desktop interface as a system administrator, and I'm just coming across here now to look down into advanced customization and then down into the devices. Now, inside Sage CRM, there are two Sage CRM mobile themes. There is the mobile theme that you can see here, which is the main theme that we're going to be using and the one that I'm using. There's also a one that is mapped to the Sage CRM Classic mobile theme. These are for older devices like Blackberries, for example, would be dropped into that. If we click into the theme, we can start to see here how it is defined and the fields that we can understand are being defined at this point. Now, in the lower part of the screen, you can see that we've got the user agents that are configured and automatically being picked up as belonging to this mobile theme. And we can also see that there are settings here to indicate what the name of the theme is, whether it could use frames or not. The mobile themes shouldn't be using frames. Sage CRM's main interface doesn't use frames, but that has an impact on some of the field types when we're thinking about behavior associated with Search Select Advanced, for example. So there's a change in the way in which some of the fields behave inside the interface. Now, I'm going to come on and look now at the idea of how that set of different devices and user agents stored within metadata then gets to help build the interface that we see. So the mobile theme contains a link to an XSL file, I should say, XSL file, and that has the job of converting the XML generated from within Sage CRM into a markup that the device can render within the browser on the device. And what we'll find is that this is all about maintaining security as well. So metadata is used to understand that the screens are going to be generating a set of XML that has to be interpreted for the device that will, through the use of a processor, which will then generate the HTML that will arrive on the mobile device that you're using. So Sage CRM uses, for the mobile environment, metadata to build its screens in the same way that it uses metadata to build the main user interface. And if anything, it is much more explicit about how it is metadata only when it comes to creating that screen. We'll see that this is a very much a no-code environment. We are defining things and explaining how connections are made between the different structures. The system database holds the data that describes how the mobile screen is going to be built. There's a version of every screen that you want to use in a mobile environment for every main interface screen. So if you think about something like the company box long, the company box long might exist in one form for the main user interface, but for the mobile interface, there will be a separate version which may have a truncated set of fields on it, because you're only going to want to include the essential fields that have to be added to that particular mobile screen. So this is all about deciding what fields are included in the screen and what fields are in which order they're also included within the screen. And we can see that we would be able to interact and change some of the properties of those fields. Well, raises the question about, can we script with this? And we'll be seeing that we can, and there are some guidance that we have to follow if we want to be able to achieve all of the results that we want. Now, here I'm looking at a very simple, common screen, the opportunity list. So on the left-hand side, we can see that we are looking at the opportunity list, which has got the search box facility within it. We've got like the filter box, we've got the pipeline graphic, and underneath it you can see the URL. Now the URL that calls that particular screen makes use of the session ID. Session IDs are used within the mobile interface as well. And you can see that we've got within here how we've got the reference to the act and then the contextual information that we're using. In this case, we can read that down here. But you'll notice that in the mobile interface, it may not be using a system action as such. It may instead be referencing within the interface a call to produce the same equivalent screen, not the same screen, but the equivalent screen, drawn on a version of the opportunity list, which is wrapped in a structure known as a block. Now, the blocks are the units that are responsible for generating or allowing the XML, the interaction between the XML and the XLST to generate the HTML that we want. So if we think of the block, it's where we are wrapping the presentational information with some of the behavioral information that then gets rendered out into the device. We have to understand that the way in which the URLs for the individual screens are built are different, and so the information in the URL becomes different as well. You can see that there's a different set of information for the context that we may be used to. Now, if I press on, this is how basically the Sage CRM draws the user interface. So you have the data and screen definitions associated with the device are retrieved from the database. Sage CRM creates an internal XML document that is then transformed into a finished HTML document sent to the mobile client, and it uses the XLST the transformation language to be able to do that, the XML transformation language. So this is a style sheet that is used to transform the XML documents into another document. And you can imagine each screen as though it was a separate XML file that generates out its output. So we start off with opportunity list. Now that's not a physical XML file. It's generated from the underlying metadata on the fly, and then depending on the device, it's processed by the appropriate style sheet and interpretation guide, and then the interface is generated. So whether you're using a BlackBerry, whether you're using a custom theme that you might create, or you're using the default theme that is provided, the Sage CRM mobile theme, it is that determines how the XML is then rendered. Now, what we get from that is where we have our theme definition. So we have the theme description, the user description, the how it's going to be shown to people. And if I go back a slide, keep talking about this, you've got this idea of the fact that there's this extensible file that exists. Now, because it exists, and you can actually go away and find it, and we'll look at that in a moment. We can actually find where the appropriate XSL file is found. Typically, it's underneath www root themes, underneath the default theme that we have, or the theme that we use for Sage CRM, which is called ergonomic, and it's found there. So we'll have the particular device name. And we then can go and change other aspects of this, whether we specify a particular version of the markup language that's being used. Modern mobile devices now are all basically using the HTML. We don't need to populate that because it's the default HTML that is being passed through. We're not versioning this as to a particular version of this. We don't need to define HTML frames. We don't need to put in any information about the device or the that, but you may need to think about the device code page if you're working with a particular type of tablet that is bespoke, and you may need to think about the number of rows that will appear on a device if you want that. I'll mention a little bit more about the location of the default CSS file in a moment, because although that mentions a location for it, and you might expect where it is for the main theme, it's held in a slightly different location. Okay, now I'm going to click in and start to look for this. And what you can see is I said that you can go and find the XSL file underneath Program Files, Sage, CRM, then the instance name. In my case, my instance is called CRM, down underneath www root, down inside the themes, and then you'll find XSL, and then inside here, ergonomic. So this is where you'll find the extensible style sheet language file. And as you know, as I've explained, its job is to convert the Sage CRM XML output into a format compatible with the mobile device. Now, this is going to make sure that its job is to make sure all of the interface elements are appropriately styled and formatted to show onto those mobile screens, and hopefully provide our users with a user-friendly experience on whether they're using a smartphone or whether they're using a tablet. Now, if you open it up, you'll see that it has got expressed in XML. It is expressing how the output is transformed into HTML. And So you've got in here the context of how the layout, the styling, and the structure is shown, and this can then be theoretically customized. Now, inside Sage CRM, editing of the mobile.xsl file to change the default theme is generally not recommended for customers unless you have a thorough understanding of XSL and the implications of making changes to this file. It is a better idea to create a new theme and to work from this to be able to create your own theme if you want to. So this mobile.xsl file is a critical component that affects how data is displayed on the mobile devices. And if you make incorrect modifications, then it could lead to display issues or actually functionality problems. I've been experiencing some of those as I've been working on preparing for these, in terms of it's very intolerant, the interface is very intolerant of XML errors, and we need to be careful about making sure that everything renders correctly. Now, if you do need to customize it, and make sure that you do know the implications of changing that. Now, what else have we got in here? You can see that in here, underneath where we've got this time in a slightly different location, underneath www root in the folder mobile, that's where we're going to find the device CSS file. Now, the device.css file is the CSS file that is used for our device. That's our main theme that I'm talking about today. Now, so Sage CRM 2024 R2, the mobile.css file, it's just a cascading style sheet. It's going to be the one that is read and used, and it allows us to change the visual styling and layout for the user interface elements when we access CRM through the mobile device. It's here that the optimization for the screen size, the resolution and capabilities are actually enforced. And if we look at the contents of this together, then it's all about making sure that the interface actually, picks up and does everything that we need. Here you can see that in this particular file, that as I've opened up the CSS file, you can notice the imports that have taken place. So there's an import for some fonts, sagefonts.css, and the color palette. You can take a guess that those are the main changes that occurred within mobile.css for the 2024 R2 release. And this is where we can start to change the look and feel very much. If we wanted to add in our own font, if you're to match a customer's branding, if you wanted to be able to as well match a customer's color schemes as well, and even drop in, if necessary, there are down here the routes to the different icons that can be changed as well. So changes can be made to further enhance the customer's experience of Sage CRM. Now, you can, as I said, customize this, and similar to a way in which any of the styles can be changed, we're having to look here at our color file. And so this is color palette.css, and you can see that you can override this to change the colors that are being used. If you are going to change the CSS file, it's probably not as dramatically dangerous as working with the XML transformation file, the XLS file, but it is something that we do need to be aware of, because again, you need to know what you're doing as you're making the changes to the styles of the mobile theme. Now, that's introduced the whole setup. We officially have 5 minutes left in our meeting. I'm going to overrun this because there's quite a lot of information to get across. I am recording this, so all of this will be contained within the recorded lesson, and I'll be making that available on the support YouTube channel, support and training YouTube channel. But let's have a look now at actually how screens are controlled. This is the user as they use Sage CRM. Now, the first thing to say is that the mobile device follows the security instructions for Sage CRM. Certainly data access, that's about data access. So if you don't have the rights to access a particular entity, you won't be able to retrieve any data from it. If you cannot insert, you cannot insert, and the appropriate messages would be returned to the interface. Here you can see I've got two user profiles. These are security profiles that the sales manager profile can view data, whereas the sales rep profile can't view data within the cases entity. So just looking at cases, the sales user can't access cases, but the sales manager can view them but can't carry out tasks. Now, here I've just come in to demonstrate this particular thing. So you can imagine the sales manager is on the left, and they're looking in their territory at the number of customer care issues that are there. They will see because they've got rights on cases, they can search and see the data. You can have a user in exactly the same territory as the manager, but they don't see any of the cases because they don't have the security rights to be able, because of their profile, they don't have the security rights to view the case entity. So no data is returned. So this is showing you that the mobile device follows the row-based security. If we want to start to control the individual fields, we can do that as well. So we can see in this particular case how certain fields are marked as mandatory. We might see and expect to access a particular field as well, but an individual field isn't displayed on the screen. So some people might see it and some people won't. So in this particular case, we're looking and thinking about case service level agreements, for example. You might not want somebody to see that field at all. And this is all done, and it follows the instructions down at the level of the individual field. So I can be looking at a screen, I can look down, and if I look at one of our fields, I'm actually looking at here the screen. What I'm doing is coming into looking at my company screen and seeing how the fields are controlled on a screen. And let me go back and walk you through that again. I've come across into the company. I'm coming down into my company blocks. When you're working with the mobile device, most of the screens and lists are going to be wrapped in a block. And the block is then this theoretical wrapper that wraps and controls the way in which the XML is generated for that object. Here you can see the company summary block, which is the main company page, and you'll notice that it's made up of a number of different components, including other blocks like the company summary screen dropped in to this container. If I switch to the fields, because I know that that company summary screen is in there, I can start to think about where and how that screen is edited. Now, notice, please, this is very, very important to notice, that when you come in to starting to edit a screen for mobile purposes, you have to make sure that where you've got the devices listed out, that it is the not the desktop, but rather the appropriate theme that you want to change, because every screen will have a version of itself for every device. So the main desktop, now I'm looking at the version of the screen that I want to change for, and this happens to be the company box short, and it's using this then screen, but the fields are somewhat truncated. Now I can look and see in here what fields are available to me. I can start to see as well that I've got these fields on the screen within this block. These are the ones that I'm looking at: company, type, website, account manager, and the territory. They're the ones. I can start to control these if I want, because they're all contained within this screen. And what I can do is I can add in maybe a new field. And so I'm interested in the company service level agreement, so I can add the company service level agreement in, and it's added into that screen. This is because it's drawing on that company box short version of the mobile device, which is contained within the block, which is then rendered out onto the screen. This works in the same way as it does in the main interface, and I think that's understandable. Now we can tie this back to the field to determine who exactly can see that particular field. And I can go back to the field and I can choose a field, and I can change some of the rules for the company service level agreement to indicate that actually I've got people who are in customer service team can see the field, and people who are service agents, but everyone else can't. So only the people who are in the customer service grouping or the customer service agent profile, these are the security territories, can see the field. Now, what that translates to inside the interface is that for my sales user, that sales user can now not see the company service level agreement ID field. So the SLA field is gone, and that's demonstrating that you've got within the mobile device not only control through the security territories of the rows, but you also now have control over the individual fields as well. So within the context of the mobile devices, the interface can be very, very quickly and severely changed. We're going to explore a little bit more about what you could do as well, because there are some other choices that you could make to control the interface, and that's through field level scripting. So within the context of the screens, we can also use field level scripting. These are very short, low code things that we can do. Now, to demonstrate this particular point for a field, I've put in valid, false. So valid is going to be equal to false, and throwing out the idea of the error string, and the error string shows the information to be displayed. So what I've got here is the fact that you've got contextual information that you can use. You have to be fairly mindful of the contextual information that you have. This is something that we'll be exploring over the series of lessons. But the context that you have in the mobile device is not as rich as the context that you have within the main interface. Typically, you have the user and then one other entity that's in context. So the company, but not the default person, just the company. So you've got the main thing there, and you can write that out into the interface. Now, if you can write that out through the interface, you can also start to think about how you might want to change the behavior of certain fields and captions within inside the screen as well. I happen to be looking at a search for a company beginning with Gate, and you can see that I've got a couple of companies. You can see that I've come in and I must be somebody who has the approval, so I can see my service level agreement field. But you can also notice that I've added a rule here that says you have a rule here that says that the current user is Kylie Ward. So we know that Kylie Ward happens to be a customer service manager, and you can see that they're looking at Gatecom Inc., which is all perfectly true. So we have contextual information, we know who the user is, we can do extra checks, and we know from previous experience, if you've been customizing the main user interface and you're using create scripts on fields, you can have additional rules to cause fields to be hidden based on the properties of the user. So you can fine-tune the interface to exactly what you need based on the team, the user, the security profile, in controlling exactly what fields are shown to which user within the mobile environment to make sure that it's optimized for that work purpose. And you can see here that it's displayed as we work through and as we swap over to do the other work that we might want. So I'm navigating through, looking at here the details of the case that I wanted. That's warned me. And I've just used there a create script. We're going to be looking a little bit later on how we can use other types of scripting, how we can use validate script, table level scripts. We can even use escalation rules to be able to change and modify the experience of the user as they're using the mobile interface. There you are. I've come back into the definition of the screen. This is the case box long and showing you where I've put in that server-side script with the create script. Now, if you want to know more about create scripts, then I would refer you to existing lessons that are up on the Sage CRM support and training channel. We see our results. We know that we can make fields mandatory. We know about that. We can see as we've entered the context in here. And what we've understood from our lesson today is how the mobile interface is generated using information defined in metadata, drawn from Sage CRM, working with the interface to adhere to any of the security rules that we are used to working with to generate out the interface that we need. It's likely that we would want to make changes for a particular customer. What we're going to be looking at in the next lesson is exactly how we can create our own new mobile screens and how we can take and support a custom entity and bring that custom entity in as well. So we'll be looking at taking a non-surfaced entity and using that to, so a default entity within inside Sage CRM or a default table, building screens to add a new enhanced behavior, and then we'll also look at how we would build screens for a custom entity as well. That's what we'll be doing in the course of tomorrow. So I hope that this has been a useful session. Let's see if anyone has been able to put in any messages and questions. Thank you all for attending. I look forward to seeing you on the next lesson. Thank you and goodbye.